The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com
We were on a break!
with Ambar Garcia, Bryan Broaddus, Nick Harris, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Monday, September 16th, 2024, Season 20, Episode number 30. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break. We're live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at The Star. We're presented by LG. LG is the world's #1 OLED TV brand for 11 years and counting. See why at LG.com/OLED Evo. All right, got to talk about this. Cowboys get a loss yesterday. Really, it wasn't much of a game, most of the game. From the opening kick, I think the Saints really had their way, especially offensively with the Dallas defense. I think it was all the way until the fourth quarter before Dallas even got a stop. And what I mean by a stop is didn't allow them in the end zone, not even field goals. Like it was a beating. And so we'll talk about that. Let's start first, as we do every Monday. I want you to go big picture. We'll dive into the nuances of the game, but big picture, tell me what you think was the storyline of yesterday's game. We'll start with you, Nick.
Yeah, the defense just getting overwhelmed, both in the pass game and the run game, but I think it started in the run game. You see these guys getting absolutely assaulted at the point of attack. I mean, it was bad. I look at the defensive interior line, and I know there's a lot of still new faces there, but you bring in these two veteran guys that you would hope would have some sort of impact, at least in the run game, and you just did not see that. I know we talked back at camp whenever Jordan Phillips was traded from the Giants, and I was a little bit bullish on how I didn't feel like he was an effective run stopper. And I think that really started to rear its head yesterday, especially as that game started to wear on and those reps started to get a little bit more taxing physically. Linval Joseph, he wasn't getting after it either. I mean, he was reaching at times and was just getting pulled around, and it made life really difficult for that second level. I mean, there's multiple snaps where you see Maris Leofeld, DeMarvion Overshown, Eric Kendricks trying to play two gaps while they have another guy coming on top of them to block. So they're trying to fit around a block and cover two gaps at the same time. And it allowed Alvin Kamara to have the day that he had, 4 touchdowns and over 100 and what am I looking at? 180 all-purpose yards. He had a day. And I think offensively, I've mentioned it time and time again, but this running game needs a hard look in the mirror. It's getting to a point now to where, do you feel comfortable with this running game being the established product for the rest of the season? And I know it's only 2 games in, and I know we have a limited sample size, but this is going to be a situation where we look up in 5-6 weeks, and if they haven't made any changes at that point, they will have to make a change before it's too late, and then they're probably running up against time with the trade deadline at that point. But nevertheless, I think whenever you look at the biggest problems that this team had yesterday, I feel like it starts with stopping the run and running the ball. And it's kind of funny because I go back to Mobile at the very beginning of the offseason, and Jerry Jones said the 2 things he wants to get better at this offseason is stopping the ball and running the ball better, and those were the 2 things that were the biggest catalyst to the loss yesterday.
What can I say? I say in this year, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to care. I don't care. I do not care. I'm going to handle this as a job. I'm going to come in and do what Derek requires me to do in this job. But the reality is that I do freaking care. And every time, I'm still finding myself getting upset because... And I'm going to divide it into 2 parts. One, let's start with the offense. The offense, I know what I saw last week. So what they did this week didn't necessarily surprise me. I did expect them to be a lot better, especially playing at home. Second week, I expected the offense to be more in sync and just get into the end zone more times. But it was very similar to what happened in Cleveland, where they just could not produce offensively. They got to places where they were moving the ball, but they just cannot get into the end zone. And then you got Brandon Aubrey, again, being the one scoring the most points for the offense. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, it is extremely disappointing because what I saw week 1 was extremely exciting. From the get-go, from beginning to end, you saw such an aggressive defense, and then it was completely the opposite happening what we saw yesterday. Just a defense that they just could not catch a break. And there were a lot of missed tackles. You saw it, people just not being on time where they needed to be. It's just like the New Orleans offense were just so much more ahead. They just had so much more juice to them and were playing such a much faster football, such a much faster game. And so that's the most disappointing part, that at least the side of the ball that I expected to be a lot better. Once again, they just cannot handle the running game. It's going to be a problem again. And what's troubling is, like, I don't know how you fix that right now. You know, you brought in size. We talked about it last week. You bring in guys that have the size and you expect it to be better. And it's just a very disappointing performance of a Mike Zimmer's defense that I expected to be so much better.
They didn't respect the right side of your defense in this game at all. And the way they formationed you, and then the way they ran the ball, and the success that they were able to have. Very simple with the toss sweeps and things like that, to able to get to the perimeter. You know, the right side of the defense has been a little bit of a problem. You know, we've seen Lawrence play over there. He got blocked a couple different times on the crack toss. They got Parsons blocked over there. Everybody that played off that right edge had a little bit of a problem. If you're going to stop the run for the Dallas Cowboys, your linebackers are going to have to do it. No one else is going to be able to do it. And the Saints did a really nice job of getting blockers up onto your linebackers. And so it really kind of starts with the defensive tackles, as you mentioned. So if they secure the defensive tackles quickly, and now that allows the guards to get up on the linebackers, every one of these Cowboy linebackers were having to fight blocks the whole day, and they overran some plays. You ask, well, where was Overshown in this game? Overshown is not a nickel player. Well, he's not a base player. Leah Fowler's your base linebacker. And so if Dallas plays nickel, and this is what the Saints do to you, they get in 21 personnel, 2 backs, 1 tight end. They get in 22 personnel, 2 backs, 2 tight ends. And they make you play base defense the whole game. And then all of a sudden, you know, a lot of teams are so used to playing nickel and having nickel fits. So all of a sudden now you're playing with rookie like Leah Fowler, and he's fighting blocks. Kendricks, who makes 1 million tackles in week 1, has to make a ton of tackles. They can't get him to the ball. The screen play, 57-yard screen, great call. Blitz coming from the right. All of a sudden they slip the screen to the left. You're thinking, well, wait, Broadus, why isn't Micah on Kamara there? Well, it's Kendricks on Kamara. I'll take that in space. That's a linebacker on a legitimate big-time back. I think I'm be okay coverage-wise. Boom, overrun the play. You know, these are the kinds of things. Run the ball to the outside. Tank's the right end. Tank's seen this 1 million times. Crack, crack, crack. You know, he jumps outside and he's able to kind of maybe make the ball come back inside, or they get bodies over there. He gets cracked. Now the corner gets blocked out. They did a great job of getting blockers on defenders, and then Kamara making somebody miss. Mm-hmm. And that was a big part of your game for them. It's pretty simple. The toss plays, they did not respect your perimeter of your defense, and they felt like that they could control the edge and then seal everybody to the inside, and they were very successful doing that. I mean, again, I mentioned Kamara, 11 attempts on the outside left for 77 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's Diggs' side over there. You know, we've talked about that before. Even when Dallas didn't play the run very well, what was it? We've mentioned this. They take care of the end, and this is when they were played a ton of dime. They take care of the end. They can't get the safety in the fill in the alley, and they kick Diggs. You know, I mean, that's where they're at. They're like, hey, they're still not good enough. We're going to take a chance that they're going to not be good enough on their right side.
So let me ask you this. Should we be at this point having more conversations about the safeties even, and not maybe filling some of those gaps? I know yesterday that big long touchdown, both your safeties are back there. Well, you got to be able to run with the guy, right?
It was, you know, what happens to you, though, is the Saints create windows when they throw the ball. Mm-hmm. The very early down when they threw the ball to Shaheed for 9 yards, Okay, what did we talk about in Carolina they did in week 1? They motioned Kamara to get the space and then sit the guy right in the middle. Well, what did they do in this game? They faked the screen going left. They took Taysom Hill and a blocker and moved it, and that created space. Now your guys are reading, flowing, boom. That thing opens up there.
Yep.
Now the ball that goes down the field, the deep pass. Okay, it's a cover 2. Look, Carson has got to jam that guy. Carson cannot let Shaheed just duck him and run vertical on the safeties like that.
Yeah.
So, there's things that you have to do in order to play good defense. If your technique says jam that guy, what happens if you jam him? Well, you get a rusher that almost gets home. Carr's standing there in the middle of the pocket, and if he has to wait on Shaheed to clear, then maybe that's going to be a sack, a hit. Ball in the air.
Just that second or 2 seconds, whatever it is.
Just that not getting a jam off the line of scrimmage allowed a guy who can really run to get on your safeties. Yeah, that's just the kind of the things that happens to this team. When they're bad, there's some physical problems. Don't get me wrong. But there's also problems that they have when it comes to playing the scheme.
Yeah, Odigizio almost got home on that play.
Yeah.
It was close, but it was a beautiful ball. Hell of a ball.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting. I noticed early in the first drive, what they did was they were running those crossing routes, and they hit Dallas twice on those crossing routes. Dallas was in man. My guess is at that point they were like, okay, let's back away maybe from trying to do as much man because they're beating us on these crossing routes. You go to cover 2, as you said, and then here we go, right up the middle of the field. Split the safeties.
You get a situation too where you're playing single high. And you're playing a single high look, so you got Wilson in the middle of the field. You got Hookers down taking the tight end. And so now you got the single high look. Well, what happens then? Hooker's out, and then the route comes behind that. So they carry Wilson deep, and they run the route. And what happened is Diggs is playing at depth.
Right.
And there's no
way for him to
there's no way.
that.
It's a free run inside.
Right.
And so you're like going, whoa, look out.
Is that a scheme problem? When you're gonna play man, you're gonna give him that much of a cushion.
I don't want to be accused of being a coach guy. Because I'm just telling you, to me, you're asking Diggs to do a lot to have to. If you're going to say that's good route has to be carried, and you're playing that thing at depth, and that route is coming inside hard, that's a pretty tough one to play. If you're playing man and you got to trail it, again, I'm not a coach. I'm sure there's somebody over there that's going to watch this and they're going to go, Broadus, you're a dumbass. And that's fine. But to me, it seems like that's a hard route to carry playing from depth. And it happened, like you say, it happened a couple of different times. But the Saints do a really good job of creating windows for their receivers to run into, and it gives the quarterback the opportunity to make some throws.
Not only the route, but the speed of Shaheed too.
Yeah.
And I think there was a lot of times we looked up at the secondary last year and understood that they had some problems with speed guys. And no matter where you kind of see some guys come out, see some guys come in. I mean, compared to what that season looked like last year, you don't have Gilmore or Bland on the field, but you have Diggs and Carson. So where does this kind of come into play? Are just all of these guys bad at covering speed? And I think we're getting to a point to where we probably need to identify that, just because, I mean, you look at Rashid Shaheed in this game. You call back to I'm forgetting his name from the Arizona game last year that had a huge day. Greg Dortch, I believe.
Yeah. Well, there's Brown also too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I think whenever you look at these speed type weapons, it's going to be a problem for the Dallas defense.
Well, I was gonna say, looking at some of the secondary guys and a cornerback, when you're watching some of the film, and they're having, depending on the routes that's being run, and they're having to make the cut to adjust and follow, that cut right there slows them down so much to like the adjustment, and it creates so much separation. And you see some of these receivers, and you talk about speed. I mean, that's the main thing that stood out from the offense, that the Dallas defense just could not catch up. They were so much faster in every single play, whether it was running the ball or throwing in the passing game. And even then, like I said, just making those adjustments, they just could not follow there.
To that exact
and
point,
so much separation.
To that exact point, there was a play where Diggs was giving Shaheed quite a bit of depth, and Shaheed broke and Diggs anticipated that he was going to come at him.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah,
by the
yeah.
time he broke, there was probably 7 yards in between.
So
And
much space in
Shaheed-
between.
I'm trying to find the exact play, but Shaheed ended up getting like 20 yards on that play. So it's tough. It's tough.
I know everybody made some offensive comments as well about it. The running game, that game was out of hand. Their running game wasn't going to help you. I think the red zone offense needs to be examined.
Yep, and we're definitely going to get to
that's
that.
where that's to me, if you're going to say, as Ambar in her assessment was talking about moving the ball and getting, and now it turns into Aubrey kicking field goals, you need to look at where you are offensively in the red zone. The running game, I think it is what it is right now, but the red zone offense to me is a bigger issue than what their running game is.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that. There are some, when you start digging into the offense, that seems to be the stark difference there, because the game would have obviously been much closer. I'm not sure Dallas would have won with the defensive effort they had yesterday, but certainly would have been much more of a ball game if your offense could have scored more touchdowns than the field goals.
You needed to stay with them in that game and pray you were going to get a stop, and you didn't get a stop. So that was the problem. You're going to need stops. You didn't get them. But they also left some plays on the field. The wheel route could have been a touchdown if the ball's thrown out there. We saw the one where Lamb had an inside route. That was a misconnection that could have been a touchdown. They left some big plays out on that field.
All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, I do real quick before we move to our attention to the offense, I do want to talk about the pass rush for the Cowboys and maybe the non-existence of the pass rush. We'll do that when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
Don't put off getting your oil change, Dallas. Take 5 Oil Change, a proud partner of the Cowboys, is faster than you think. There's no appointment needed and no waiting room. Yep, you heard that correctly. Take 5 is so fast, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can take advantage of Take 5's fast, friendly, and simple service at any of their locations across the Dallas area. And remember, at Take 5, you stay in your car because they're faster than you think. Take 5, the official oil change of the Dallas Cowboys.
If you shout, "How about them Cowboys?" you have that undeniable passion that's the heart of Cowboys Nation. And if you like to drink Dr. Pepper, you love the unique blend of its 23 flavors. Together, your one-of-a-kind fandom paired with the one-of-a-kind taste of a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper is the game day lineup that can't be beat. Better yet, gather your Cowboys and Dr. Pepper fan friends to watch the next game and crack open a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper for everyone. The wins will be even tastier. It's a Pepper thing.
Life doesn't stop when the economy is uncertain. The market might not care you have a wedding to plan or a kid to put through school. And inflation doesn't know you've got a family to feed. But Bank of America does, and is here to help. With digital tools to help you save and local experts nearby, you can keep life moving forward the way you need it to. Bank of America. What would you like the power to do? Learn more at bankofamerica.com. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC, equal credit opportunity lender.
Back to the break.
LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game, but don't take our word for it. Digital Trends said the LG OLED G4 has the best picture quality they've ever seen. See it for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
Welcome back. It is the second segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. The segment brought to you by blockchain.com. All right, let's talk about the pass rush yesterday. Now, I know that a lot of this has to be prefaced with the fact that New Orleans had a good game plan for getting rid of the ball quick. Yeah. And when they didn't, they would max protect to be able to give themselves time. They have 2 guys out in a route, and they would try to do it that way. So they had a good game plan going in. But didn't seem like the Cowboys put much pressure on him at all, even in situations where maybe there were plays where there wasn't max protect, or plays where they didn't get rid of the ball quick, and Dallas still wasn't able to manufacture the kind of pressure that we've seen them put on other teams. What did you guys see from the standpoint of the pass rush and their ability to affect the passer?
For me, I think the Saints were really creative in attacking the Cowboys' best pass rushers, and for me, I was seeing it in the first half, and them specifically going after number 11, understanding where he was pre-snap, and motioning over a tight end to go give a tackle help. And on a couple of occasions, which I thought this was pretty interesting, they would have a guy in the slot. It could be Shaheed, it could be Olave, or it could be Kamara as well. They would motion him over, snap the ball right as he was crossing the right guard. Let's say if Mike is coming off the left side, and as he's running his route, he's going to chip him on the way out, and it would just crumble Micah. And so like he would be crumbled at the top of the at the beginning of the play, at the point of the snap, and then he's trying to attack the left tackle. And even if he does get around him, by that point it's already 3.5 seconds into the play, and Shaheed's 80 yards downfield. So it was an interesting attack of how they went after Micah, but it was a very intentional effort that they did pre-snap. And you see them calling out things pre-snap and pointing at 11 pre-snap almost every single play. I think they did a good job just washing him out. And I think whenever you look at the run game, I mean, I talked about it a little bit in the previous segment. There was just no push generated at all. But I think when you look at the DeMarcus Lawrence case in particular, they were putting 2 guys on him in the run game almost every single snap. And so it was they did a really good job understanding where 11 was on pass downs and where 90 was on run downs. And they attacked both of those guys, and their plan was perfectly executed. I mean, neither of those guys got any sort of push.
I thought it was really, when you start to talk about, playing with the tight ends and the fullbacks and stuff like that, and it was clear that there were probably some times where Micah lined up thinking he was going to get one-on-one. And then all of a sudden, you mentioned about the chips, but to me, having a wing or a tight end, a Taysom Hill or a Foster Moreau lined up on the right side. So here's Parsons going to rush the opposite side. He's probably thinking, okay, I'm just going to get a tackle here. But then it turns into, at the snap, here's that guy comes all the way across, and not even a motion, just he immediately, it's like a running back checking like inside, outside. Yeah. And they were able to, so then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, wait a minute, this is a double now. And so they felt comfortable. And there were a couple times where they put a tight end over there, like Moreau, they put him in line over Parsons, and then motion. And then now it's 2 tight ends blocking on Parsons, and then it allowed Fuaga, the tackle, to go help elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So they were kind of thinking like, keep 2 guys on him, and then but don't let him have an understanding of what was going to happen to him pre-snap. Sometimes he's like, okay, they're going to double me here. And now it's like, okay, I got single ball. No, wait, they're going to double me now. So they really kept him off balance with the way that they blocked up their fronts.
And every play, I thought it was so well designed by them. Everyone was completely in sync, and I'm talking about the Saints offense. And again, I go back to just playing a faster game, because if you look at at some of the film, Micah would get there where he needed to, whether it was to make the tackle the running back, or get to Carr, but it was just a few seconds too late. Yeah. Carr was just so much faster. He wouldn't hang to the ball too long. He would get rid of the ball quickly, whether it was a pass. And I thought there was, along with the motion, a lot of some misdirection being created when he was going to hand off the ball to the running back, where it just drove everybody to the right side or the left. And then while the play was just getting created the opposite way. So I thought, I mean, credit to the Giants, credit to the Saints offense, but I think they played so much faster.
Quick draft show plug. Fuaga's so good, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's so good. 44 pass snaps that he's had in his first 2 weeks, 0 pressures allowed. He was getting after it in the run game, too. That guy's a mauler.
What was he drafted again?
First round.
I know first round. What were they?
That would have been 14.
Yeah, they were right in the middle
14?
of the board.
Yeah.
All right. Real quick, I do want to go back to the defensive tackles, and I'm looking at the guys that the Cowboys brought in, Phillips and Joseph. Neither really got a training camp. Is there any chance, like as you're looking at this, is there any chance that fans should believe that this is about time. Those guys have to work up, work in, and they'll get better as the season goes on? Or do you think that this is just one of those where they just got to figure out how to play better? Because that doesn't necessarily factor in when you're talking about this position, the skill set necessary to play that position.
Yeah, I think that could be said for anybody, 2 weeks into the season. That's why, like I had kind of mentioned earlier when I was talking about the offensive running game, like I understand it's only 2 weeks into the season. I think with this specific case, though, looking at the defensive interior line, yes, those two guys, they got a late start, a much later start than everybody else. Granted, Linval Joseph knows the scheme. He's been around it. He didn't start his career in the scheme, but he understands where he is in that scheme. And as far as Jordan Phillips goes, he's not really asked to do a whole lot, And I think when you look at a defensive interior lineman, from my standpoint, yes, scheme matters, and yes, you need to know what your responsibilities are under a certain scheme any given play. But I think you can look at all 32 teams and you understand like where defensive interior linemen's responsibilities hang, and they're pretty consistent. And I don't feel like either of those two guys really matched those responsibilities yesterday. For me, it was just those guys were getting pushed at the point of attack. I mean,
that doesn't get better from
on the
time.
ground too.
Absolutely,
they were on the ground.
On the ground, and I mean, there was one play. I believe it was Kamara's first touchdown, and Jordan Phillips was pushed all the way into the back of the end zone, and that play started at like the 6-yard line. Yeah. I mean, it was a rough day for Jordan Phillips in the run game. I don't want to see Jordan Phillips on rundowns anymore. That's how I feel about it. I'd rather see Osa Digizua.
I feel like I let folks down here a little bit because we talked about this in training camp. Because if you do watch him play at Buffalo, that there were, the Dallas game, he was an effective player there. Philadelphia played a lot better. Kansas City, you watch those games and you could actually see a guy that, that is active, plays outside the tackle box, gets up the field as a pass rusher. This doesn't even look like the same player. I mean, and I wonder, if you talk to some people in the pro personnel department with the Cowboys, that they would probably feel the same way. But yeah, they really, really struggled. All their defensive tackles struggled yesterday in this football game, and Phillips and Joseph, and you're not going to. I mean, I understand the question. I'm not going to make an excuse for them because they were bad yesterday. Whether they've been in training camp or not, you have to play off blocks. You have to be able to hold up. You have to be able to turn your guy, hold him in place, allow the linebackers. Like I said, Dallas's run defense will only be as good as their linebackers are, and if their linebackers are getting blocked every single play, and having to fight those blocks, Dallas will give up. They'll have more days like they did yesterday.
Not only fighting blocks, but having to play two gaps at the same time on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
That's where I think I saw the biggest lack of accountability up front for the defensive line. Was these guys were just getting isolated and they were trying to reach around, and it allowed the left guard Lucas Patrick to get into the second level and just get after Maris Lewifau or get after Eric Kendricks, and those guys are trying to take on Patrick while trying to identify, okay, is Kamara going to come over here? Is Kamara going to come over here? And somehow he just does both at the same time because he's a really good running back.
Yeah, right.
He just splits in half and goes around and then comes back together. I mean, he had a hell of a day too.
And well, again, it is week 2. Yeah. It is week 2, and I'm a huge believer that the more you do something, the better you're gonna get at. Obviously, given no injuries or anything like that come into play, but at the same time, it is to a point where I believe it when I see it, and I think that's where a lot of us are. That we expect something, and then something doesn't happen, and now you're just like, there's no other thing that you can do other than sit here, hope for the best, and then take it 1 week at a time, one opponent at a time, because every opponent is going to be completely different than the prior.
This should be an exciting week for this defense. This should be a very exciting week for them, because all last year they were told, hey, they don't know how to respond whenever they get run down their throat, and it would happen week and week and week again. Now you have a different scheme. You have a lot of different personnel, especially on the first 2 levels, and you have the best running team in the NFL.
Oh, you're going to get challenged this week.
Yes, since 2000. If you look at any point since the year 2000, the Ravens have the most rushing yards in the NFL. Like 2013 to 2024, Ravens. 2010 to 2024, Ravens. 2022 to 2024, Ravens. So you're going to get the best running team in the NFL week in, week out, and it's an opportunity to respond. And I think you wouldn't want a bigger opportunity than this one. And it's week 3, like you said. There's still a lot of learning that can go into place. How does Mike Zimmer approach this with that team this week? They should be really excited about the opportunity in front of them.
Who's the more desperate team, because one team is 0-2 and the other didn't stop the run worth a damn?
They're both desperate.
They're both.
I mean, I'm me. I'm the big guy of the desperate team theory, and I just kind of feel like that that both teams are desperate.
Yeah.
They
I think
really,
Ravens
really are.
are more a little bit because they're going on the road.
Yeah.
It would be a big win for them to carry confidence back home. I think personally the Ravens, but yes, I agree with you. Both teams are really desperate coming into this game.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those games where whoever leaves this game is not going to be in a good position moving forward, I don't think. Just from a psychological standpoint, it's going to be a hard road at that point. All right, we're going to take our final break. We'll come back. Let's talk about the offensive side of the ball. There were definitely some things that they could have done better yesterday. We'll talk about that when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
From the field to the festivities, Lucchese embodies the essence of luxury and tradition. Handcrafted with meticulous precision, each pair offers unmatched comfort and style. Stand tall while you're tailgating or cheering in the stands with the Dallas Cowboys collection by Lucchese. Shop the collection today at the Lucchese store at the Star in Frisco or online at lucchese.com. Lucchese, the official boot of the Dallas Cowboys and Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to the break.
AT&T, connecting changes everything.
Welcome back. Final segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. It's presented by LG. All right, let's talk about the offensive side of the ball. And I don't remember the last time we've gone into the break on a Monday morning and we got to the third segment and still hadn't talked offense, but we did it today because I think it was warranted. But let's talk about the offense. Dak Prescott yesterday is 27 of 39, 69% completion rate, 293 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and a 78.3 rating. How would you evaluate his performance?
I might be on an island here, and I'm completely okay with that. Dak was the only one that showed up yesterday offensively. I thought he played a fine game. He had one bad throw, in my opinion. I think.
Which one would you say is that?
Was the Tyrann Mathieu interception? What was that, third quarter?
Yeah.
But aside from that, I think Dak he felt pressure. He did a good job getting away from it at times. Granted, he was sacked 3 times. One of those, obviously, the fumble happened in the red zone that should have been a turnover, but Tolbert was able to fall back on top of it. But aside from that, I thought Dak did a good job of distributing the ball, all the different receivers that he was able to get involved. I'll give another bad decision that I didn't love. It was the 4th down, and he forced it to Brevin Spanford there in the red zone.
Yeah.
And I don't know why you trust an unsigned or undrafted free agent in that
in double coverage, like there were 2 guys on him. Yeah,
and it was the first target he's had in his NFL career. So it's like I don't know if I would have done that, but personally, I think aside from that, I think if I look at the connection problems that he had with CD, which it showed up on a pair of occasions, in my opinion. There was one, obviously, the touchdown ball that he would have had in the first quarter, where he anticipated Lamb to break to the pylon, and instead he broke to the goalpost, and so the ball ended up falling about 7 yards yards away from Lamb.
Did either one of them ever clarify which was right?
None of them ever clarified which was right, and I don't believe they're going to. Just based on,
I was just assuming one of them would take credit, like, yeah, I probably should have done this. I'm not saying they would have pointed out the other person was wrong as much as they would have said I'm wrong, but I hadn't heard that.
Dak was asked about it.
Yeah.
He just credited it to a miscommunication and trying to get on the same page problem. And then it happened on a separate occasion as well, where it was a play down the left sideline. Dak was trying to throw it up to CD. He anticipated him falling back to his to his right shoulder, and he fell into his left shoulder, and so there was kind of a miscommunication there, and it ended up falling to the turf. Fortunately for the Cowboys, both of those fell to the turf. But I think aside from that, I didn't hate the game from Dak Prescott yesterday. He has no running game, and he has a wide receiver one that he's still getting on the same page with, and I don't think that's a fault towards Dak. So I think from the offensive standpoint, whenever you look at stalling in the red zone, not having Jake Ferguson obviously is a really big factor of that, because whenever you look at where Jake Ferguson is getting the most of his money, it's inside the 35 in my opinion, and they didn't have him in that opportunity. Luke Schoonmaker, he did fine in his opportunities, but he wasn't going to be that guy. And so I think all in all, I didn't hate the day from Dak, but the offense as a whole, I don't feel like was ready to show out.
I mean, I wasn't a fan, if I'm being honest, of like some of the things that I watched yesterday. And mainly one thing that I will criticize, and we'll get into the red zone and all the issues there. But as far as Dak's game, I expected him to be a lot more mobile. And I'm not trying to put everything on his back for sure, because you need everybody, like you need to catch the ball. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to hopefully create some balance in the running game and get help there. Also, the O-line needs to be able to protect you more and create a better pocket for you to be in. But at the same time, given the pressures that happen, I did expect Dak to be a lot more mobile, get out of the pocket, and because we've seen it happen. We've seen him be good at throwing. We've seen him be good at running with the ball, finding somebody open, and throwing it. So I think that as far as his game, that's something that lacked, and I was disappointed in that. But overall, I don't know where to pinpoint the issues in the red zone.
To that point, Dak was asked yesterday just about how he felt he could have been a little bit better. And he's always a guy that will just resort to, hey, I need to get to the film and see, ask me on Thursday. But he did say the thing that really stood out to him initially was the fact that he needs to use his feet more. So that was used in his press availability after. He says he needs to work that footwork.
Because sometimes he would stand there and you're like, just go, take off,
absolutely.
Go. You have feet, you have leg, use them. But no.
You have leg.
I honestly, I don't know how he got the ball to Zeke on that one play where
that was unreal.
He flips it, and I'm not going, oh my gosh, he made chicken S out of, and so it was, that part.
It's my favorite meal.
Yeah, but to me that there was a couple times. I think the red zone offense, we're going to examine that, of course, and. And you mentioned the throw to Span Ford. They double inside. There's really nowhere for him to go to the ball. I mean, they've got it covered across the board. Yeah. If I could have a couple of plays back for him, I think the Lamb one where you talk about the miscommunication. How many times have we seen Dak touch pass the ball to the flat to Elliott and allow him to turn up? I mean, there was that play on the goal line. He faces pressure, and usually Dak is the king of getting it over and getting it up the field to allow his guy to get into the end zone. The ball ends up on the ground. The Saints really don't have anybody in that area. That thing might have been a walk-in touchdown right there if they get the ball, if he can get the ball to Elliott. The pass to Rico Dowdle, I mentioned that one, the wheel route. They didn't get the pick, but they got enough where if the ball's up the field.
He had a couple steps on him.
Yeah, Dowdle could run under that. Now, again, that's a back. That's not Alvin Kamara running routes and stuff like that. But
if I could, on that play specifically, what really frustrated me about that play was Cooks was wide open over the middle for about a 20-yard gain.
Yeah, but
and I understand that's the read.
That's
and I understand
read.
That's the
They're
call.
They're trying to create.
And Dowdle had the room.
Right.
But go to the guy who's got 20 yards of space.
Yeah, there was you're right, and I felt like just looking at it sometimes if you're going to nitpick some of his throws, I was thinking, bro, just hit that one in the gap to CD, hit the wheel, hit the little touch pass to Zeke, and now you're kind of like you're feeling a little bit better about okay, those are big time plays. Those are plays, if you get the ball up the field and Dowdle makes the catch. I think could have been a touchdown right there. Yeah. And instead it's not. And the interception The second one was a complete force. The first one was, Brooks, he's running that route, and it's going to be a big gain. I mean, Paulson Debo is not even in the picture, but by falling down, now he's in the picture. There were some throws that he made, and that were quality throws, and then there was some just unfortunate ones that he made as well.
So we're talking about the red zone.
Yeah.
Yesterday, the Cowboys had 5 different times when they were within the New Orleans 34. They end up with 4 field goals and 1 turnover on downs. 3 of those times they were in the red zone in those drives and still ended up with field goals. One of them they ended up with the turnover on downs. That being said, what do you think is the biggest challenge or the biggest problem for the Cowboys right now when it comes to their red zone offense?
Oh, man. I don't think I have an answer for you. I could look at a couple of things that have, but I think it's been 2 different issues in both different games. I think in the Cleveland game, you had an instance where guys were on different pages as far as who. Okay. When you look at last season, I was thinking about how exactly I want to break this down. When you look at last season and you look at the red zone threats that they had on offense, you got CD, you got Cooks, and you got Ferguson, just talking passing wise, right? Ferguson obviously leaves late last week in the second half. Lamb and Dak are still not on the same page, and then Cooks was able to get open. He had that red zone touchdown last week, so I would prove him as the exception last week specifically. But then you look into this week, you don't have Ferguson. That misconnection is still off with Lamb. Pressure was getting to Dak inside the 20 as well. They really dialed the pressure up inside the red zone, the Saints did, and I think that's what really kind of affected this game specifically. But they also didn't have the running game this week in the red zone, whereas they did last week. And so it was all of the same problems that you had last week in Cleveland, amplified with more pressure and a lack of a running game this week against the Saints, and that's what created and no touchdowns, in my opinion.
If this website would work, I could look at all the plays and analyze
You were at the
it.
game, weren't you?
Yeah, same thing. Watching film and watching a live game, same exact
100%.
thing.
I'm like, is that 31?
Yeah. No, I don't have an answer for it just yet because I haven't been able to actually dissect all of this properly. But it is one of those things that if I'm being honest, I'm over here on my computer working, and the next thing you look up and like, oh, they're about to come off the field. Defense is going back in, and you're like, what the heck? How did it get that fast? Like, how did that happen very fast? But to your point, it's just like, I think it's the inability to run the football, an area where I think they've been very, very good in past years when they're able to get into the end zone, is the help that comes from that running game. And we're not seeing that right now. And you talk about the misconnection with CeeDee Lamb. That's something that is important to know. I think they're going to get better for sure, but Ferguson not being in the game, that's another weapon that has been very, very good for Dak in the red zone as well. I wonder how many touchdowns he's gotten from the red zone. I'm talking about Ferguson specifically. But it's just the tight end position that has come into play years before that I can imagine. But if you ask me a question and tell you exactly what's wrong, I don't know what to tell you.
Tell you what, execution's a big problem because how many times did they try and do something creative? They did the flip that they didn't block right. They tried another flip that Steele didn't get out and block. The sack that Dak took down there was when they ran 5 vertical. You see Cooks kind of remove himself, like he kind of gets a little wider. And Dak is looking inside, and he's looking at Tolbert inside, and Tolbert gets doubled. And by the time he's can maybe come back to Cooks, they're sacked. Like that Steele has given up the inside to Granderson, and then it's ball game from there.
Yep.
So there are things where they haven't blocked well. The quarterback they miss. I mentioned that the little touch pass that they didn't get to Zeke was a miss. They ran the reverse and didn't block. There's things what other things? I mean, it seems like to me that they get down there, and when you don't need to have a bust or something happen, it happens. And it's caused them not to have the success that they need down there.
Let me ask you, what if you're Dak Prescott going into that game yesterday, who are you relying on in the red zone? You need to make a play. It's third down. Who are you relying on?
Cooks.
Typically, it's Jake. Exactly, it's Cooks.
Yeah,
and he was getting doubled. In the red zone.
And Lamb got doubled down there too, and Lamb got whacked. I mean, he tried to throw the ball in there. I mean, he got whacked.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this. Like, for me, I always look at any team that's struggling in the red zone. My first question is, what is your running game like? Because if a team is not worried about your runners, if they're not worried about you running the ball, that gives them a decided advantage because now the field is compact and they can do a lot of different things with blitzing. They can do a lot of different things with playing coverage and muddying things up. Like, they can make it really tough on you when you have a compact field. And so I think this still goes back, and it may not always manifest itself in that way to where you're like, oh, the running game's okay. But the fact is, if the other team is not worried about the running game, that changes how they play you in the red zone. And that's what I start with is I just wonder if this running game is potent enough to where it forces defenses to play them honest rather than being able to do the things they're able to do.
Yeah, you're right. And sometimes it has to do with the back, too. I mean, they run the ball with Vaughn for 3 yards on a little toss, and you're like going, oh, they didn't block it very well there. And you wonder, I mean, Saints are down there running, and it's 7 yards a clip. You know, I mean, they're scoring from 12 yards out, 7 yards out. And you're thinking like, and Dallas is trying to do things kind of like smoke and mirrors instead of being what you're talking about, some, going on and running the ball and getting pushed in that regard.
Baltimore would never do this, but if I was Baltimore, I'm coming out next week and I'm running dime. Until they can show me that they can run the ball, I'm running dime the whole game.
Yeah.
You're just going to force them to
please run the ball.
You're going to dare them to run the ball.
I'm daring them to run the ball.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that would be the game plan for a lot of teams as they play Dallas. Because the last thing you want to do is just
double Lamb.
You saw CeeDee Lamb. He can go all the way in one play. So, yeah, you have to almost think about it like that. I mean, I think that's what most teams probably have to
I can hear Jerry Madelon in the back of my voice. Dime being 5 guys in the box, 6 DBs. So.
Shout out to Jerry Madelon.
Shout out to G-Mac.
Appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to have a little game from Bryan, which I'm sure we're going to have some very thought-provoking questions that we will have to answer. Join us. Until then, for Nick Harris, Bryan Broaddus, Amber Garcia, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?